Hey, what's going on, CJ Sports? We're back again with another episode here with Rees Vollebregt, and today is going to be a Super Bowl special. We're going to talk about just some of our favorite quarterback matchups in Super Bowl history because we have a great one coming tomorrow, and then we're going to talk about the best plays, most iconic moments that we've seen in Super Bowl history. So really excited for this one. Yeah, Reese, ready for the big game tomorrow? It's finally time.
I was gonna say I'm ready for another historic one tomorrow. Probably gonna be some podcasts in 20 years that are hopefully talking about this one. So yeah, it's gonna be exciting.
Yeah,
I always I
absolutely.
always enjoy talking. I always enjoy talking like the Super Bowl and as we're gonna get into it, just all the historic moments that have gone on Super Bowl Sunday, the unofficial national holiday here in America. So
Right.
yeah, I'm excited.
One of the great traditions we have. So usually we would have a beer segment, but it's pretty early. Not early, not super early, but early enough where we won't have a beer segment today. What are you drinking though, Reese? Anything at all?
I actually just finished it because I drink my coffee a little too fast, but I threw some Baileys in my coffee just for the sake of having some alcohol for the unofficial beer segment. But I already finished, so
Nice. How was that?
it's good. I mean, I've always been it used to be something that I just did in like the mountains and stuff like that, and I was like, I can just do this at home. This doesn't have to be like a cabin thing. So so
Nice.
yeah. What about you? What are you drinking?
Just some coffee with creamer. Nothing crazy. Um,
You
yeah,
make me
just.
feel bad.
No, I mean that sounds good. If I had Bailey's, I probably would have done the same.
Yeah, I'm getting in the mood since I'm going up to Lake Arrowhead to watch the game tomorrow. So
Yeah. So before we jump into it, just like to remind you guys, you can follow us on all of our social pages, DJ Sports Podcast, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. Reach us for any questions at our email, djsportspodcast@gmail.com, and we'll answer it on the show. So yeah, let's jump right into it. Um, Best quarterback matchups in Super Bowl history. So in my research doing this, it really hit me like Brady against Mahomes is really probably the number one matchup, right?
yeah, yeah,
That
that's
we're gonna
exactly what I was thinking too.
that we've seen. So I have five others because I just for the sake of the show, I wanted to just have five different ones than the one we're gonna see tomorrow because the game hasn't happened yet. But I think all things considered, when you think about Brady and his career, and then Mahomes and how he started off, like probably the two best quarterbacks we've seen match up in the Super Bowl. Even though Brady's 43, he's still good enough to obviously get his team there, and it's not like he's being dragged by his team. He's playing a huge role in it. But yeah,
Yeah, I think the age of both of them is actually kind of crazy. Like we're talking about a guy in his third season and his second postseason run, and then another guy who, like you said, is 43 years old, who's should be probably retired at this point, but is still playing at an elite level. So it's kind of crazy that we're getting not only an elite matchup of two quarterbacks, but two quarterbacks on completely different ends of the spectrum when you normally wouldn't call them really goats still at this point.
right. So let's start with number five. Well, you have three, right?
Yeah, I had three. I figured we were probably gonna interlap or overlap a little bit, so I tried to avoid that, and I tried to make all three of mine. I tried not to use the same quarterbacks, but that was kind of hard for me. So I have one quarterback who overlaps, but yeah, I only have
Right.
three of them. So you can start with one of yours.
Okay. So I have two honorable mentions. I'll go there first. What the first one is Tom Brady against Jake Delhomme. So now that might seem like a little like strange, Jake Delhomme, but I think that game was so good back in '03 against the Panthers that I kind of just kind of felt the need to put it up there because it was back and forth. They scored 37 points in the fourth quarter, both teams combined. I remember Delhomme had like a 70-yard pass, 80-yard pass to Musi Muhammad to take the lead. So that was just a great game, great back and forth. But yeah, Reese, do you have any? Do you remember that game, or like, do you have any memories from that?
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say I actually started looking up. I was like, damn, honorable mention is actually a pretty good one because I actually didn't know about Delhomme going into that game and stuff. But that was one of the first Super Bowls that I really remember, and the Panthers, like just everything about that Panthers team just being where they were. I don't know. It was just a weird one for me. So that was a funny call out. Right when you said that, I was like, wow, that wasn't even one that I like considered.
Yeah, I just so I kind of took into the how good the football game was. That's kind of like what I used to maybe use as like a tiebreaker because honestly, it was pretty tough to even put this list together because uh, there's just so many. There's been a lot of really bad games too in the Super Bowl. We've had a good amount of blowouts, um, and
Yeah.
I had some recency bias because you know I didn't watch the games obviously like in the '90s and '80s. So
So just out of curiosity, when you're taking into these quarterback matchups, were you, well, sorry about that. Were you looking at specifically like the matchups going into the game, kind of like we're looking at with Tom Brady and Pat Mahomes here, or were you looking at like just quarterback play in the Super Bowl?
so a little bit of both to be honest. Like there were some matchups. Like I think there was Steve Young against Elway or Montana against
Mm-hmm.
Elway, one of those, and like, on paper that looks like a great matchup, right? But the game was like
Blowout.
was a blowout, so
Yeah.
that kind of dissuaded me from putting it on the list because it was a good
Mm-hmm.
matchup, but it wasn't a good game. So I took like a little bit of both, like good matchup and a good game, and kind
Yeah.
of based the list off of that.
Well, if I could take that just into my first greatest Super Bowl matchup between two quarterbacks of all time would be Montana versus Elway. If I can, if I can just get started on that one since you're calling me out for that. Um, you had no idea that I was going to go with that one, but you probably guessed it because of my boy Elway. But yeah, I looked at this one and obviously the scoreline Montana 55-10 over Elway is pretty ugly. For Elway's history and the record books and stuff. But when you really look at this matchup and you look at coming into this game, I think that's what I was more focused on, and really the hype coming into this game, because this was Elway had already lost. He was coming off of a couple Super Bowl losses. So this was his third Super Bowl in 4 years, and he had an MVP a couple seasons prior, which was a pretty big deal for quarterbacks at that age. And this was kind of seen as not the game that was going to get him over the hump, but you can be great all you want, but in the NFL, but unless you have that ring, you're not going to go down in the history books. So this was seen as Elway's chance. He was 29 years old going into this game, and this was seen as Elway's chance to basically solidify himself as one of the goats. But he went in with a just extremely inferior team, and he basically dragged that team. Even the two Super Bowls prior, he gets a lot of credit for dragging some pretty subpar teams with absolutely no run game, and he had players on defense. Absolutely had players on defense, but with all due respect, like you have to say that Elway was coming into this game with a lot to prove, and he was going up against Joe Montana, who would in this game win his fourth and final Super Bowl, which would solidify him as one of the greatest of all time. He was having an MVP season, his third MVP season, which was, I think, a record at that time. So I think just the matchup between both of these guys, if you put yourself in that era, it was, even though Elway hadn't proven himself yet and he hadn't won it yet, it was probably one of the best matchups in history at the time. So I had to give that one due mention, even though it was an absolute blowout. But even if you want to look at that and you want to look at Montana's stats in that game, he had an absolutely incredible football game. That was one of his best Super Bowls. So in his final one. So yeah, I had to throw that one in there. I felt a little attacked when you said that because it was a blowout. So, oh,
um,
You know what, and honestly, do mention too that Montana was also the most efficient passer in NFL history at that time. So this guy was like, not only was he winning the most, but he was doing it with the stats to prove it and stuff. And yeah, the guy was just kind of ridiculous at the time, and it was seen as Elway's moment to maybe make his case as taking over the throne and stuff. And he obviously wasn't able to do it.
Yeah, for all the reasons you mentioned, I Montana was growing up honestly my goat before Brady and this new era of quarterbacks came along, because he had all the rings, the numbers to back it up, like some incredible Super Bowl performances. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I
These two,
actually
I
go
was
ahead.
just gonna say these two guys are in my top three, so I think that's why I had to mention them. Just a matchup between top three guys. I mean, once Mahomes is done, it doesn't matter where this one ends, but it'll probably slide in there as well. It just had to be mentioned for me.
Yeah, I actually have Elway on my list. Not that Super Bowl, but a different one.
Okay.
Before I get to that, another honorable mention for me was Rodgers against Big Ben in 2010. Yeah, that was just like another good game that I thought. People have their opinions about Big Ben, but he's had a pretty great career. 3 Super Bowls,
Hmm.
won twice, has a ton of yards and touchdowns. So that's just two good quarterbacks going back and forth.
Yes,
But yeah, number
especially at
five.
especially
Go
at
ahead.
that point in their careers too. Where Big Ben was, how he was regarded at that point. It might be laughable for some people who maybe don't remember how good he was to start out, but yeah, that was an elite
Definitely.
matchup.
Yeah, like beginning of his career, he was a rookie that took not even took the Steelers. Like he didn't play well at all in his first Super Bowl, and it was kind of like the defense, and then the trick play
Hmm.
against the Seahawks. Um, and then the second game was against the Cardinals. He has that throw, which I'm sure we're gonna get to. So that was a better game. But yeah, the third game, the last two games, like he actually like stepped up and had a great performance. But yeah, number five on my list, best quarterbacks matchups in history. Elway against Favre in '97. Um, I Yeah, so not Elway's best game. You look at his numbers: 123 yards and a pick. Terrell Davis had 157 yards, 2 touchdowns. But I just for what it meant, this is Elway's first ring, I believe. He finally
Hmm.
gets that monkey off his back. And on the other side, you have Brett Favre, a young Brett Favre, who kind of shows flashes of what he turns out to be in his career: 256 yards, 3 touchdowns in the Super Bowl. Antonio Freeman, 126 yards, 2 touchdowns. So yeah,
Hmm.
just two great quarterbacks. Kind of the end of Elway's career and the beginning of Favre's career. So I think it's like two good uh two good points from there.
Yeah, no, that was actually on my list as well. Elway was my crossover. Go figure. That he was going to be my crossover quarterback in Super Bowl matchups. But yeah, that was to me that was one of the most. In a way, I think it's kind of underrated because of maybe how these guys are viewed at the end of their career. That although they're in the conversation for being top 10 and stuff like that, quarterbacks of all time. You'll see lists that some people have Elway 2 and some people have Elway 8. Some people have Brett Favre in the top 5 and some people have him nowhere near the top 10. And it's just like they're kind of it's kind of random how you view the end of their careers. But coming into this game, yeah, as I mentioned before, Elway hadn't got it done in the Super Bowl. He was 37 years old coming into this game with finally a phenomenal team around him. And Brett Favre coming into this game was that I think it was wasn't that his third straight MVP award? He was like the one of the first, or I don't know if anybody's done that since. But yeah, that game, just going into that game was I think two quarterbacks that, especially once Elway gets his ring in this one, it was just two quarterbacks who were just playing at an absolute elite level, and Elway with what he had to prove, and Brett Favre coming into the league with how he did. Yeah, that was just a phenomenal matchup, and that's one of my favorite games to rewatch. One of my favorite
Yeah,
Super Bowls to rewatch.
you were right. He won 3 straight Super Bowls or straight MVP. Sorry, Brett Favre from
Okay.
'95 to '97.
Yeah,
I don't think
he
that's been
was.
done since.
I was just say he was crazy. I don't know if it was maybe lack of. I don't want to say that it was lack of talent because there was definitely other players who could have won it, but that's pretty insane when you think about it. Like if we had a quarterback right now who won 3 straight, if Lamar won 3 straight, or Aaron Rodgers went out there and won 2 more right now, it's like we would be giving these guys some elite praise. So
Hmm.
yeah, and that's what he was coming into the Super Bowl matchup with. So yeah, that Packers team was pretty ridiculous.
Yeah. Um, I'm trying to see. Yeah, see, the Packers were huge favorites in that game. Oh, they were 11
Yeah,
point favorites, so it was
they were
actually like a.
defending champs, I believe. They had won the year before. So that was like gonna be, like you said, that was gonna be like the start of Brett Favre and like what he was, and Elway being able to take that away from him, I think really hurt Favre's legacy, because I don't have it up in front of me the next time that he went to a Super Bowl, but I mean it's hard to go, as we know, it's really hard to go back, and the Packers had a chance of going back to back, and instead the Broncos said hell no, and they kicked off their back to back run. So it's just I think just in Super Bowl history and with the two franchises, that was huge. I mean that propelled the Broncos, as a Broncos fan, that propelled the Broncos into, once they got their second, into one of the elite franchise range, and Green Bay already being there, that was just, I don't know. I just love everything about that matchup, truthfully. And I think it was kind of underrated.
Yeah. I didn't even think about the aspect of the Packers being such big favorites. I didn't know that they were heavy favorites in that game. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I
that
mean,
just adds another element.
yeah, Elway being 37 probably hurt the case. And, there was a famous quote of John Elway's mom going into that game, where he called his mom, and I think he talked about this afterwards, after the Super Bowl, where he called his mom, after the AFC Championship game, like, "Mom, can you believe it? Like, going back to the Super Bowl, And this is after he's lost 3 times early in his career in a 4-year span, got demolished in all those games, and I think his mother famously said, "Do we have to? Do we have to go back to the Super Bowl?" And so that was a huge game for Elway, and yeah, Favre being the favorites, he was the young gun. He was obviously playing at elite level, so that was a pretty cool one. Just pretty phenomenal. That, as we'll get into the plays later, as I'll mention, pretty phenomenal. They were able to pull that one off.
So, what number was that for you on the list?
I didn't rank mine. I didn't want to get into that
Oh, you
because I
didn't
was
rank it.
like,
Okay, got it.
yeah, I just threw 3 to 4 together, and then I have a couple more that I didn't really do research on. But once you mentioned your 5, I'm like, okay, crap, I'm gonna have to mention these. So, um, yeah, I didn't rank them, but this would probably be in my top 3, especially given, like, if we're factoring in how the game went and stuff. This would probably be in my top 3.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, makes complete sense. So number 4 for me, if I could go ahead,
Hmm.
is Big Ben against Kurt Warner in '08. Yeah, that was just like another great game. Kurt Warner, one of my favorite quarterbacks. I believe at the time this was his this is his third Super Bowl, and he had the top 3 uh, passing performances in Super Bowl history, because every Super Bowl he played in, he had over 300 yards, and I think that at the time that was the top 3, uh, in history. So, a great game. The back and forth. Cardinals were down for the entire game after the James Harrison pick six. Larry Fitzgerald scores a big touchdowns, and then we have the iconic Big Ben to Santonio Holmes pass. Yeah, so that's just a great game. Two great quarterbacks just going at it. And yeah, that's number 4 on my list.
I think that's a pretty good one. I think especially Kurt Warner, I think he needs to. He's not really. Nobody talks about him as one of the greats. Well, not that nobody talks about him, but nobody regards him. I don't think a lot of people have them, in their top 10 or anything like that. But this guy was real legend, and yeah, maybe he didn't. Did did he get one? He got a ring, right?
Yeah, when the Rams beat the Titans.
That's right, that's right. I was gonna say, I was like, I swear he ended up with one. It was late in, like, we didn't see it, or at least we didn't witness him winning a ring, but we witnessed him close. And yeah, I think it's good to mention him when we're talking about the greatest quarterback matchups of all time in Super Bowl history, because I mean, he's definitely up there in the way he played the game and the teams that he led to the game, as you mentioned in this one, were pretty phenomenal. And at the time, that was an absolute fantastic football game to watch. So
Yeah, it was. Should I go ahead with number 3?
yeah, go ahead. Since you have more, go ahead, and then I'll get in my top couple.
Okay, it's number 3, Russell Wilson against Tom Brady in 2014. Another great game. That the Seahawks jumped out to a 10-point lead, um, and then Brady comes back with 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, and then of course we have the now infamous Malcolm Butler pick, um,
Hmm.
which was Russell's only interception of the game. So he would have finished with a much better stat line. But yeah, there's just 2 great quarterbacks. Brady is obviously the GOAT, and Russ is on pace to be, one of the better quarterbacks we've ever seen. Efficiency standpoint, what he can do on his legs. His career has been pretty incredible. But yeah, just a great game as well. And 2 quarterbacks who are going to be highly regarded in history.
And would that have been Russell Wilson's second ring in a row, or second in 3 years? I mean, either way, you can look that up, because I think, yeah, that for sure that's in my top 5 as well. If I had done 2 extras when I was looking up for my honorable mention, this was going to be one of them, because from uh, where the quarterbacks were at heading into the game, and as you mentioned, just how phenomenal of a Super Bowl that was. This was just one of the best Super Bowls, I think, in recent memory.
Hmm
Everything down from the matchup all the way to the final play of the game. So yeah, I think it's good that you mentioned this. For me, it's what it could have been for Russell Wilson's legacy. Like this.
Yeah,
Everyone did. Were you able to look it up if that was his?
yeah. So it would have been his second in a row.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and that would have, not only to get your second ring and to put yourself into that elite company, but to also get back to back, and to do it at such a young age. You would have put him up with Dan Marino in terms of starting his career, and then in terms of like having the actual rings, a guy like Big Ben started off super hot. So it would have really put Russell Wilson in pretty elite company moving forward to solidify his career as like a GOAT, really. And I don't think that's talked about enough as one of the current quarterbacks who he's got a lot of time left in him. So this
Um,
matchup in general
yeah,
was just phenomenal.
yeah. I mean, Brady had 328 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 picks. Russ had 247, 2 touchdowns, 40 yards on the ground, and that 1 interception at the end.
Yeah.
Not only like you said, it would it be back-to-back rings, but back-to-back rings beating Manning and Brady. So he could have had a really incredible achievement to his legacy, but
Yeah.
just came up
Wow.
short.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible to mention the 2 quarterbacks that he faced as well. So yeah, that was just in football history. I feel like that's just such a great Super Bowl. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
Right. And we should give credit to obviously the first game. Their defense was insane. You
Hmm.
know, deservedly. I forgot who the MVP was, but it was a defensive player.
Yeah, no, it was just all around. Yeah, that team was insane, and that probably would have been the only blemish on Russell Wilson. If you would have been looking for one, was how great those defenses were. But still, just at that age, he was just playing incredibly. So that's a good one.
Hmm Um,
So I'll go ahead and do one of mine now. Because I got, as you just mentioned, Peyton Manning, and one of mine versus just one of my greatest quarterbacks of all time, Drew Brees, in the 2010 Super Bowl, where Brees ended up coming out on top. And I had to throw this one in there, not only for, as I said, I was really looking into kind of the preview of the matchup and what fans would have been feeling like heading into the matchup and how excited they would have been heading into the Super Bowl. And at that time, so this game was in 2010. Manning got his first ring in 2006, and he was playing in an MVP. He was coming off an MVP season, his fourth, which he got in 2003, 2004, 2008, and the season that they're playing in 09, 010 or 09, 10. And then Drew Brees had set an NFL record that 2009 season with a 70.2 completion percentage, which he's since broken, I think, 4 times, it says, and he currently holds at 74.4. So this was kind of Brees's season where he, everybody knew what this guy could do. Everybody knew he was accurate. They knew he was a field general, and they knew what he could do, but he wasn't elite yet. And here he was setting completion percentage on his way to his first Super Bowl ring, where I wish that I looked up the exact statistics in the game and stuff, but this
I can
just,
pull that up.
yeah, I was gonna say you got all that stuff in front of you, but like I said, I was just looking at how fans were feeling headed into the matchup, and even for me, I remember that game pretty well, and that was just a phenomenal game, barring that I think it was the kickoff return after halftime that the Saints ran back. So they won this game by 2 scores, but barring that, it was just an absolute back and forth battle between two guys who, yeah, they're not going to blow you away with the most incredible pass or, the most incredible thing, but the way they can lead their offenses was just a joy to watch. So I had to mention this one.
Yeah. So I have the stats in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
Brees 32 for 39. So that efficiency again.
Yep.
On display, 288 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then Manning, 333 yards, touchdown and a pick. So, this was actually number 2 on my list. So,
Oh, I was going to say, I knew we were going to have some overlaps because especially in recent memory of the games that we were able to like witness. And I think at this time, you and I were both probably pretty big football fans, but just at that point, just fans of the game. I wasn't, watching what play calls were happening, et cetera. I was just watching 2 really good quarterbacks go after. And I was like, I just thought that this is how it was always going to be. And I mean, we've seen some subpar matchups since then. So it just wasn't really
yeah,
the case. So,
I was honestly surprised, like doing research for this, because something like before I looked at the matchups, I was like, we've seen some great matchups recently, but when you go down the list, like there's been some really good games, like a lot of good games, but the quarterback matchup specifically, it's like, yeah, hasn't really been there. So which
yeah.
is why I'm even looking forward to tomorrow's game even more.
Yeah. That's going to be phenomenal. I think I've said phenomenal like 6 times now. I'm so excited.
Yeah. So, how many more do you have on your list?
I actually only have some honorable mentions, so I'll let you take over your top.
Okay, so my number 1, I had to go a little further back for this one. Joe Montana against Dan Marino in '85. Not the closest game, but just 2 of the best quarterbacks of all time going at it. I know Marino. He's always has that mark on his legacy for never winning, which is unfortunate. But he just went up against a really good 49ers team. And Joe Montana, who played a hell of a game, 331 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. And yeah, they took care of business. And Marino, he had a decent game, 318 yards, a touchdown, 2 picks, but yeah, just not enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just look at like the best quarterbacks of all time. Like those are 2 of the best to do it. So.
I'll say the elusive ring for Dan Marino. Probably should have been this year. So.
Yeah. You want to talk about your honorable mentions?
Yeah, so I think for the most part, especially, I'm glad you mentioned that Joe Montana, Dan Marino one, because that was, I think, we were probably the only one that we were missing in terms of, GOAT stature quarterbacks, no matter which way you look at your list, of guys meeting up and just best matchups. But yeah, my honorable mention, this was one that I wanted to mention it, but I was like, I can't because it was way before our time. But I think just for football history, the two Super Bowls actually, and the little bit of the rivalry between Terry Bradshaw and Roger Staubach. So these are two guys that are, for a lot of people, left off of GOAT lists and stuff like that, just because of maybe the teams that they had around them and stuff. But they played in, I think, I mean, Terry Bradshaw won 4 Super Bowls. I think he was won all 4 that he played in, and then Roger Staubach played in a few. Can you hear me?
Okay, we're good. We're good. Yeah, we just had
Sorry,
yeah, good.
where did I cut out?
I heard Roger Staubach, and like that was it. Yeah.
Oh, just the very start.
No, it was like the second time you said Staubach. 'Cause
Oh, yeah. I mean,
I
it basically just all I wanted to talk about with these because I don't have, like I said, I don't have stats for this. I don't have anything crazy about the matchups going in, but I think just for NFL history, these matchups meant a lot. Not only for the matchup between the Steelers and the Cowboys and how, as we see today, those are taking the Patriots out of the mix. Those are two of the most popular teams in America, probably because of these early Super Bowl matchups, because it was Super Bowl 10 and 13. So way back in the late 70s. And for Terry Bradshaw came out on top in both of these, but it created a bit of a rivalry between the two. And Staubach had his rings as well later on. And like I said, this was way before our time, so I didn't really want to mention these or try to get into them. But I just think for what it meant for NFL history, have these guys meeting up twice and how popular it really helped spread the game in America at the time, having two faces of the league match up in such short time was pretty massive. So felt like that's a good mention.
yeah, Steelers and the Cowboys, two of the most successful franchises in history.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, and mostly because of this era as well. So, but like I said, it was way before our time. I didn't want to mention it as if I knew a lot about it. I've seen the playbacks and stuff of these Super Bowls, and it just watching that, it's just like, oh my god, just to be a fan way back in the day when the Super Bowls first started would have been so much fun.
Hmm. Definitely. Um, so should we go to the best moments, or do you have another honorable mention?
No, 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 no. I think the best moments kind of tie in with a lot of our quarterback matchups. So let's get into it.
Yeah, definitely. Touched on a couple of them. So I have
Mhm.
3 honorable mentions. I'll go through them kind of quickly. So one of them is the Joe Namath guarantee. So that's something that like one of the first stories I heard in Super Bowl history. I think it was Super Bowl 3, where you had Joe Namath from the AFC or
Yeah,
the
and it was the new AFC who wasn't supposed to compete, right?
yeah, like they were regarded as kind of like a lower league. Because back then it was called the Super Bowl because you had 2 different leagues, and you had the best team from one league play against the best team from another league. So, um, you know, they were regarded as just a team that wasn't good enough to compete in the NFL. But they go out and they beat the Colts in where they were huge underdogs. Joe Namath before the game guaranteed that they're going to win. So yeah, just a really cool story in my opinion, and just like something I've heard so many times growing up. So I wanted to add that in there. Colts were
Yeah.
18-point favorites.
Yeah, and that was the Baltimore Colts at the time team that was just, I mean, they were running the show in the NFL. And in the it was the NFC at that point. I don't know if they called it the NFC or whatever, but it was the
NFL, yeah.
national.
NFL against the AFL, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So, and it was widely regarded that the winner of the NFL championship would be they basically were the Super Bowl winners, because it was just never really a competition until Joe Namath, and this high flying Jets offense, came in and guaranteed it. So yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. That's a great one, because it's one that happened off the field,
Right, exactly. Not on the field.
Yeah.
How many do you have, by the way, for your best moments?
I have 3, but I mean, I have honorable mentions if we want to get into that. But
Yeah.
I should probably just mention my 3 for now. You can do your honorable mentions, because I know you did your research on them, and they're pretty good. So
So another one is wide right. In '91, you had the Buffalo Bills. This was the first of their 4 Super Bowls that they went to. And it's just, you look at the moment in like you look at the moment specifically, and it's like, oh yeah, it's such a terrible Super Bowl loss. So close. But when you look at it in the grand scheme of things, of like, they went 3 more times and they lost every single time. Like, it just gets magnified even more. Because that was the closest chance that they had to winning the Super Bowl. Because the last 2 they got blown out, and I think the other one wasn't even close either. So yeah, that moment is just like, it sticks with me, because what could have been,
mhm.
if he makes 1 field goal, like, yeah, you lost 3 years in a row, but at least you won 1, but you can't
Yeah.
the Bills can't hold on to that, so just tough.
And I don't know, gosh, I don't know if this was like a personal thing that just I did, and I just assumed that everybody did. But growing up, this was one of the first, like you said, because it was that moment was so magnified with what followed after it. This is one of the first like old school videos, vintage NFL films videos that I remember watching. And if as anybody who's listening should, go watch the YouTube video and hear the call of just the announcer screaming wide right. And it's just like, just for whatever reason, like, just playing football, at the high school or something like that, and somebody kicks it, just, like doing what the refs did in that moment and stuff. It's like, just such a great moment. I mean, depending on which side you fall on, if you're a Bills fan, just a terrible moment, but for anybody else, just a insane.
I'll start right now. So yeah, that
Okay.
was just arguably like the most memorable field goal, or yeah, most memorable field goal, I guess, in NFL history.
Hmm.
Someone that's like, mentioned so often. And yeah, unfortunately for Bills fans, that it's gonna be talked about until they win one. So yeah, the first one, that game, they lost by 1 to the Giants, and then 13 to the Washington football team, and then they get blown out by the Cowboys in the next 2 games. So
Yeah, just for what it meant for the team, obviously, like we keep mentioning, just yeah, incredible. I'm glad you're mentioning these old ones, because these are the ones that I didn't want to really get into, just because I didn't witness them and stuff. But I'm very glad that you're
mhm,
mentioning these, because they're so important.
right. Um, so my uh, third honorable mention is Philly in 2017, Eagles Patriots Super Bowl. Just I mean, they can't believe they made a statue outside of the stadium for that. I mean, I can't believe it. It is Philly.
Yeah,
But just what that means for the Eagles and the whole city, their first Super Bowl after so many years. You know,
yeah,
like, I could only imagine being in Philadelphia that day when they won. And this play is kind of, the symbol for that win, because Doug Peterson and Nick Foles, they just went into the game as underdogs. No, I'm not saying nobody gave them a chance, but you're playing against the Patriots dynasty. Um, and like, I mean, let's be honest. There's the
yeah.
story of
Hey,
Nick
no,
Foles.
no, nobody gave him a chance.
Patriots were 7-point favorites. And oh no, actually, this is the wrong Eagles Super Bowl. Eagles Patriots Super Bowl. Let me. Sorry, give me 1 second. Patriots
No,
were
no,
five
no.
point favorites.
Patriots were only 5-point favorites going into that one.
Yeah.
That actually surprised me a little bit. I guess just because Nick Foles had proven so many people wrong at that point, you know?
Right. And also that uh play call is memorable to me because the final score was 41-33. They needed every single point basically, and before that fumble, like Tom Brady played like almost a perfect game. He had 500 yards passing, I believe. Hello?
Yeah, Tom
So
Brady
yeah,
threw for like 500 yards in that, right?
yeah, 505 yards, 3 touchdowns. So Nick Foles on the other side, 373 yards, 3 touchdowns. So yeah, both of these teams just throwing haymaker after haymaker, and um, I think Doug Peterson, I don't know if this is true, but I wanted to believe it's true. I think he went back and looked at other Patriots Super Bowls and was like, all right, what did people, what mistakes did people make? Um, I think he was like, "I'm not gonna play conservative, like, in this game because to beat the Patriots, you kinda have to, just put your balls on the table, like, you have
Mhm.
to make that play, um, because you're not gonna beat them otherwise. You're not gonna beat them, like, Belichick and Brady are too good. So you look at, the Seahawks Super Bowl, um, you know, Pete Carroll, I think, overthought it, and he should have ran the ball instead of throwing it. You look at the Falcons Super Bowl, probably should have ran the ball instead of
Mhm.
throwing it again. So you go down the line and like, we're not gonna make these same mistakes and we're gonna play aggressive as hell. So yeah, just an incredible moment and just like, such a I'm really glad we're able to witness that because such a fun, like cool moment for Philly.
Sorry, I lost you for a second there.
Yeah. Um yeah, I was just gonna say like such a cool moment for Philly, cool moment
Oh, yeah.
in Super Bowl history to be a part of, and just like the trick play and just the pass of the quarterback is who could have seen that coming?
Yeah, we'll never. I don't think anybody will ever forget that one. Um, yeah, I got another kind of weird quarterback one as an honorable mention because I already know our top three. Or did you have three or five?
I had five.
Yes, you outdid me again. So I'm definitely gonna have some overlap with my
Yeah,
top three. Like you're definitely gonna mention a couple of them. So
I'm
um,
sure.
just as an honorable mention one, and again, I guess I was just trying to just look for just individual moments that I think the Joe Namath guarantee was a pretty good one because that was like and honestly the Philly special because those are two momentum shifters that really meant a lot for the team. That did it win the game, as we're going to see with other important plays and stuff like that? No, absolutely not. But it pushed their team um, to a different level. I think with the Namath guarantee, it gave that Jets team absolute confidence to go in there with the guy who's going to have the ball every single damn time. And I mean, he already showed that swagger. And same thing with same thing with the Philly special. When you rewatch that video of Nick Foles walking over to Peterson and saying, "Should we do Philly Philly or whatever?" Like that whole moment, I think just shows like Nick Foles had that mentality and that confidence in the huddle every single time he went out there, and that's just the guy you need at that moment. So, um, and another one, which is God, my bias is really coming out, but it goes back to that Super Bowl that we mentioned, which was one of our both of our favorites of Elway and Favre. And for me, it was I had to mention this one because this Super Bowl in general is one of my most like probably one of the most important for me personally with like my NFL history. It was one of the first that I watched over and over and over again on VHS tape. Of like a season review and stuff, and I just that film every single time, like the where the music gets all slow and it gets intense, and it shows
Yeah,
just the incredible season that they were coming up to was the Elway helicopter, which I don't know if you've probably seen those pictures and stuff, but if you've seen that play and if you've watched that video, and I encourage a lot of people to go do it, because it was a 37-year-old quarterback who hadn't hadn't gotten it done, and he was taking a franchise that he loved, who had never won a ring, to a Super Bowl really late in his career, and late in the third quarter, it was 3rd and 6, and there's just a lot of talks about this play, that basically the play Mike Shanahan called, you needed one coverage, and he was like, Green Bay never plays fine. So John Elway gets to the line, he looks up, and shit, Green Bay's in this that Mike said they would never play. So he knew from the start the play was going to be he had to run for it, and it was just incredible effort. The way he flew through the air, he flies head first, gets hit by all 3 Green Bay guys. They flip him around, and he ends up with his feet, a couple feet from the end zone, and they end up scoring, going up 24-17, and they end up winning that game, I believe 31-24. And every single guy on the sideline after that game basically gave credit to that Elway helicopter and said that, like, just to see your 37-year-old quarterback, putting his body on the line like that, it motivated us. And Pat Bowlen famously holds up the Super Bowl trophy, and says, "This one's for John." So, and even afterwards, people have said that he was even saying that because of that run and stuff, not only for what he's done for the franchise at that point. So that had to be one of my honorable mentions, as a Broncos fan, and just for what it meant for me, felt history.
Right. That play is definitely one of the ones that like I saw a lot growing up for sure. Um, I think it was just like after I said yeah, just one of the great moments I've seen.
Yeah.
But yeah, should we go
Let's
to
just
the
get
next
into the
one?
next one. Yeah.
Okay. So number 5 on my list is the Santonio Holmes catch um, from Big Ben. Just a perfect throw, and honestly, probably even better catch. Like you see, just his 2 feet just perfectly tiptoeing on the edge of the end zone, um, and a perfectly thrown ball for the game winner. Yeah, like just looking at like a picture of that catch, like it's just really incredible. Like it was the perfect, like you couldn't have like scripted a better play,
Mm-hmm.
to win the game.
And for a rookie wide receiver, that's the moment everybody dreams about growing up. It's what you do in the backyard. It's what you do in the street with your friends. That
Right.
moment, just an insane moment. That was one of the first like jaw-dropping NFL plays that I mean, not one of the first, but one of the clearest ones that I remember watching and just being like, oh my God, like that just happened. Big Ben just made that throw over, and that coverage, they had like 3 Cardinals wide receivers in that corner. So it just, to get the ball to him and to make that catch, yeah, that's 3 for me. So
hmm Um, number 4, the Malcolm Butler interception. We don't have to go too deep into this because we talked about it before, but
mhm.
yeah, I mean, he's at the right place at the right time. They're at the goal line, and it just, that's something that we're going to be talking about for such a long time. That play, um, seals the game for them. Yeah, in the Super Bowl ring number 5 for the Patriots and Brady. And yeah, what could have been with Russell's back-to-back ring.
Yeah. What do you think of the, like, I mean, everybody talks about the insane, as we mentioned, obviously just the insane play by Malcolm Butler, the single most important play in that Super Bowl and in many Super Bowls that we've seen, because that was the single play that decided, like it was a back and forth battle. But I think just a lot of people, even to this day, debate the decision and stuff like that. Like, do you still think Pete Carroll like royally effed up by not handing the ball off to Marshawn again, or what?
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say, like they should have just ran the ball.
Yeah.
Because the play before, like Marshawn is barely tripped up. Like you see him like going to the end zone, and I think that play's not talked about enough because I forgot which Patriots defender it was, but he made a great
Dante
tackle that
Hightower.
Dante Hightower, yeah, to save
Yep.
the touchdown. Um, and then we of course had to play next game. But yeah, you have like maybe I'd be more inclined if it was a different running back in your backfield. But if you have Marshawn Lynch, like
Yeah.
one of the best goal line backs in the league, yeah, you could give him the ball, and
Yeah.
and all like you
Yeah.
run like at least if you don't get it, you run some clock.
Yeah. I was gonna say I feel like you probably because that's 4 down territory. So you probably just give him the ball one more time at that point. And if you get stuffed, then you look at your favorite pass play, your favorite goal line pass play that you have, which as Pete Carroll said after the game, that was one of their favorite plays. Like if they weren't going to hand the ball off to Marshawn Lynch, like that was their favorite go-to play in those situations. And so you can't blame them for going with their guns there. But as we knew, Bill had it figured out. He knew that was their favorite play. And they called a timeout right before that. So they were clearly thinking about it. They weren't just going to do the easy play of handoff to Marshawn, which everybody says should have happened. So I don't blame him for calling that play. I just wish he did it on 3rd down instead of 2nd, I think, right? It was 2nd down. I don't know, whatever. It doesn't matter. I just wish he, handed the ball off to Marshawn.
Yeah, and you know what's crazy? The play before, it was like a crazy catch by Jermaine Curse, I believe. The ball like gets kicked up, like flies into the air. There's 2 guys on him and like magically falls into his lap. Um, and I think that play would have been talked about more, if it wasn't for the
Yeah.
interception.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was as I said, we were gonna have a bunch of crossovers. So that was actually my first, just because like I said, it was the single most important. It decided the game. There was nothing that happened after it that changed, like that could have happened. So that was mine. It
Okay,
ended the Super Bowl, but I
makes
still have
sense.
a second to mention if I can, which
Yeah,
is
go ahead.
probably going to be, I'm assuming, is coming for you, is the David Tyree catch. And I just think for everybody that this was just the picture of it and the meaning of it to defeat the undefeated New England Patriots and stuff. And for me, coming from a guy who, this isn't the best player on the defensive side of the ball, this isn't the quarterback, this is just a pass catcher that, I mean, I don't have anything in front of me, but I don't think he was their best wide receiver, right? You
Not
correct
even
me if I'm
close.
wrong. Yeah, I was gonna say
No, I
this is a
mean
guy.
they had Plaxico.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and I don't even like. I don't want to say it on air, but I'm struggling to even say if this guy was like their 2 or 3 at the time. So, yeah, I think just everything that moment meant. And were you going to mention that? Was that one of yours?
Yeah, definitely. That was actually my number one.
I was gonna say, I mean, I hate to make you jump up, but please get into the specifics of that one, because that one was just so incredible for me. I was between that one and Butler, between my top 2. So
Yeah, I mean, for what it meant, Patriots, they're going for the undefeated season, which would, we hadn't been seen before with the 16-game schedule. Um, you know, Dominating everybody. You had Brady and Moss against this Giants team that was a wild card team. It wasn't even like a division winner or anything.
mhm.
Won all their games on the road, um, and just were huge underdogs in this game. Let me find out how many points the Patriots were favored, but it might have been double digits.
And just for the Patriots coming into that game undefeated, like it wasn't just an undefeated team versus a wild card team. Like this was, I mean, if they win this game, it's the best team of all time, right?
Right. Yeah. Patriots were 12-point favorites.
Yeah. See, and that's just the magnitude of that. To really think about that, nobody gave Eli Manning a chance. Nobody thought that the Giants should have even been there.
Right.
And yeah, we saw that was kind of the first case of the pass rush against Brady, right? That being
Hmm.
his kryptonite. So
Yeah. I mean, it was just a perfect game plan by the defense. The defensive line had a great game, which is why, they were in the game and it was so low scoring. And then I think the catch was on third down, right? He like gets
mhm.
away from the pressure. And if they get the sack, or if he's even like whistled down a second earlier, who like it's a completely different story. But yeah,
Mhm.
that catch, the play in the game, it just means so much in history and like um, yeah, definitely one of the greatest moments.
Yeah,
Obviously, it's number one for me.
yeah, that was phenomenal. I'm sorry to steal your thunder like that. What was the other play
Oh,
that you were
oh no,
gonna
you're
mention?
no, you're good. So I had two more. Number three for me is the Patriots comeback against the Falcons. I was gonna put the Edelman catch because that catch was crazy, and that was on their game
Mhm.
tying drive with like 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter. But I just put the whole comeback because that's 25-point comeback, the largest by far in Super Bowl history. Kind of just capped off Brady's legacy, in my opinion, because it's uh ring number five, right? Gives him more than Montana, I believe. Um, and I think number five was more than any other quarterback in history. So I think
Mhm.
that kind of sealed his legacy for me. I was like, yeah, he's the greatest quarterback of all time. And just that comeback, everything that it meant was yeah. So number three for me.
Yeah, and you know what? While we mention it, I gotta put it on air. Your brother falling asleep in the middle of the third quarter of that game, saying it's over,
Really?
and missing. Yeah,
No way.
and
Wait,
wait, he
wait.
in the fourth quarter right before they. Oh no.
Oh no, no. Go ahead. Go ahead. You're good. You're good.
Okay, I was gonna say I was like I better not cut out right now because I gotta get this on there. That we had to wake up Shiv like in the middle of that fourth quarter to make sure that he witnessed just the most insane comeback in Super Bowl history. And to his credit, I think he said that he's watched a replay of that game because of how pissed off he was. But yeah, I got to throw that one on air.
Nice. Where whose house were you at, if I may ask?
It was at my house in San Diego. I had him. I think Bobby came down, and yeah, we just had a couple guys over down there. So
Um, that's cool. So actually, that Super Bowl was memorable for me. Aside from the comeback, of course, but this is when I was studying abroad in Rome, and so the game was, at an obscene hour. I think the game started at like 1 o'clock in the morning or something. And I was
sorry.
So yeah, the game started at like 1 a.m. I was at this bar, this Irish pub, which was I think one of the only bars that was showing the game. With some of my friends from the program, and you know, that was just something I'll never forget because the game, like the game went into overtime, and so I remember getting home at like 5:30 in the morning or something, like, and I had class the next day. But yeah,
Oh my
just
god.
you know such an incredible comeback, and yeah, that was just a memorable experience for me for sure, for so many reasons.
Damn. So you saw the Irish kid Brady make a make the most incredible comeback in Super Bowl history in an Irish bar in Rome at 5:30 in the morning.
Yeah, um, in the moment, I was so pissed because never been a fan of the Patriots, but
Yeah.
just looking back on it, I definitely appreciate that moment. Also, I remember the dude who was like serving us. He was like some white dude from Boston, and like I remember he was just being such a douchebag, and I was like, man, fuck this guy. But
Yeah.
I now looking back on it, I appreciate that memory more, uh, for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's always better in hindsight.
Yeah, it's funny too because I remember being up super late. If you remember that Packers Cowboys game where Rodgers made that crazy sideline throw, um, and it was like a tiptoe catch against the Cowboys. This was like the divisional round, but yeah, we can move on because that's not a Super Bowl moment.
Yeah, no, sorry. You're my Wi-Fi was lagging on that one, so I was just trying to catch up with you. But no, that's also a good one to mention too. But what was your other Super Bowl moment?
So number two for me was Kevin Dyson being tackled 1 yard short. Obviously as a Rams fan, that's the only Super Bowl we've won, but such a memorable moment. Like like growing up, I couldn't believe. I remember seeing that for the first time that we won the Super Bowl, like like that, the Titans, Kevin Dyson just being tackled like so close to the goal line, and just how the game went back and forth. The the Rams took the lead on a Isaac Bruce 70-yard touchdown. This high flying offense, the greatest show on turf. They were kind of held up for a little bit. Only 16 points for the whole game, and then Kurt Warner just unleashes a bomb to Isaac Bruce for the go ahead touchdown, and then the defense comes up. Steve McNair leads a great drive down the field, and then they get the tackle to 1 yard short. So yeah, that's number two for me.
No,
What
and
What do you
that's
think
such a
about that
good
one, Reese?
one to mention. I stayed away from this. I stayed away from this one just because I knew you were gonna mention it. But
Hmm.
just when you're looking at, like, if you do a quick Google search of greatest moments in Super Bowl history, I feel like this is just the most obvious like picture that you're gonna have up there. And this is the one the old Madden games always made you recreate and stop the guy just short of the goal line and stuff like that. So this
Yeah,
is this is the one you pretty much have to mention. So and I'm glad you got into that because as a Rams fan, yeah, just what an incredible moment in franchise history. So
yeah. I mean, and I'm really grateful for it too, because it would have been a shame if this Rams team never won the Super Bowl. The greatest show on turf with Marshall Faulk and Warner Bruce, because they, of course, they lost to the Patriots a couple of years later. But yeah, I'm glad they were able to get the win here.
yeah, got his ring.
Yeah. Did you have any more you wanted to add, or?
No, that was pretty much three and the other one that I would have thrown up there. And yeah, getting that football history, I think, is always good. So going back and watching the yard short and the wide right and Namath guarantee, it's always cool to get that history.
But yeah. This was actually really a fun exercise for me. Just going back and looking at history.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, just I learned a lot of things I didn't know or like forgot about.
Yeah, it's always fun to go back and read different people you respect or hate and see what they said about different matchups and stuff like that. So yeah, it's always fun going back for me. That was kind of what I did during quarantine, was watch all these NFL film stuff. So this was, yeah,
Hmm.
definitely fun.
Yeah.
Excited for tomorrow's game to put itself up there and solidify itself in NFL history.
Yep. I hope we have a great game and an iconic moment that we can talk about. We'll be back
Mhm.
with a pod next week. Of course, recapping the big game, talking about everything that happened. But yeah, thanks, Reese. This was fun, and yeah, I'll talk to you soon.
All right, man. Thank you.